All right, so get ready, because today we're diving deep into ancient Egypt.
Diving deep is right.
We're talking about your curated stack of excerpts from, who else? Herodotus,
Ah, yes, the account of Egypt.
the father of history himself.
He earned that title, for sure, though he did sometimes tend to blur the lines a bit
Yeah,
between, documented history and a good story.
right, exactly. And that's part of what makes this deep dive so intriguing, right? It's not just about the historical facts, but it's also about how the Greeks viewed Egypt way back when, in the 5th century BC.
Absolute.
And the fact that Herodotus actually traveled to Egypt himself.
Yeah, he wasn't just reading scrolls in some library somewhere. He was out there interviewing people, walking the streets, taking it all in. A true historian. He was a keen observer, relying on, well, he had to rely on translations, and interpretations. He was piecing together a culture so different from his own, it's really quite remarkable.
And you can tell, okay, so picture this. Herodotus is just blown away by the Nile. I mean, who wouldn't be?
Oh, absolutely.
But he doesn't just say, wow, big river.
Right.
He dives into their relationship with it, the Egyptians' relationship with the Nile. They had this, low-effort, high-yield farming method. And are you ready for this?
I'm ready.
Powered by pigs.
Swine-powered farming.
Swine-powered farming.
Yeah. They'd basically unleash these pigs onto the farmland. After the Nile receded, the pigs would till the soil, eat any leftover crops, and of course, fertilize the land all at the same time.
That is incredible. Talk about efficiency.
Talk about efficiency. I mean, really.
And it shows just how important the Nile's annual floods were to their entire way of life. I mean, it makes sense.
It does.
Herodotus also tries to figure out where the Nile starts.
Yeah, he does.
Right. He compares it to the Danube River in Europe, which shows you just how little they knew about the African interior back then.
Right. It's fascinating. He's grappling with these geographical unknowns, right?
Right.
And here's where it gets interesting. He picks up on this Egyptian belief that their land, the land they knew, was literally formed by the Nile's silt deposits.
Interesting.
And you know what? Modern geology backs that up.
Wow, it's like their version of From Dust to Dust, but a much more fertile twist to it.
A much more fertile twist.
Now, we can't talk about ancient Egypt without mentioning pyramids.
No, of course not.
And boy, does Herodotus have some stories about pyramids.
Oh, he does. He really does. Take Cheops, for example.
Okay.
The pharaoh who had the Great Pyramid built.
Okay, yeah.
The inscription suggests that during its construction, which, by the way, took 20 years.
20 years?
20 years, an unbelievable amount of radishes were consumed.
Radishes? Seriously?
Radish?
You're telling me those massive pyramids were built on a diet of radishes? That's hilarious. And also mind-blowing.
It is kind of mind-blowing. It makes you wonder, what other little details from the past are we, overlooking or misinterpreting?
Right, because we're seeing it through our lens.
Exactly.
Speaking of overlooking things, Herodotus talks about these intriguing pharaohs. He mentions Mykerinos, known for his fairness and generosity. But then there's Asicus, who apparently had this thing for bronze, to the point where he made it legal to use your own father's dead body as collateral for a loan.
Yeah, and it sounds completely bizarre to us, right? But it really does raise an important question. What do practices like that tell us about their values and beliefs surrounding debt and family and even the afterlife? It's such a different lens than the one we use today.
Right. It's like a completely different operating system for society, right?
Absolutely.
And their beliefs really come alive when Herodotus dives into Egyptian religion. I mean, we've all heard about their reverence for cats.
And crocodiles. Don't forget the crocodiles.
Oh, right.
Some Egyptians actually kept crocodiles as pets.
Wait, hold on. You saying some Egyptians kept crocodiles as pets?
As pets. They would adorn them with jewelry and everything, treat them with the utmost respect.
That's both terrifying and kind of amazing.
But see, that's the thing. To understand their customs, we have to view them through the lens of their beliefs. Cows, for example, were considered sacred to Isis. So imagine their reaction if, you pet a cow and then reached for a snack.
Yeah, no, I think I'd rather not risk it.
Right.
And their rituals. Herodotus describes this festival called Lychnakaya.
Okay.
Where, get this, the entire nation would light oil lamps at night.
Wow.
Can you imagine? It'd be like the whole country was covered in stars.
That's a powerful image. It is. Herodotus really does paint a picture of a culture so deeply connected to its spiritual practices, with these rituals woven into, the very fabric of their everyday lives.
It makes you realize how different our modern relationship with light and darkness is now.
It really does.
Right. But here's where it gets even more interesting. He points out the Egyptian origins of some Greek gods.
He does.
Like he suggests Heracles, Dionysus, these like big names in Greek mythology were actually based on older Egyptian deities.
He's basically suggesting this like cultural exchange program happening where ideas and beliefs are flowing between these two great civilizations. And it challenges us to think about, the interconnectedness of cultures, even throughout history.
And maybe even question which myths were borrowed and which were homegrown.
Exactly. Herodotus is encouraging us to think critically about the stories that we tell ourselves, about our history, about the origins of our beliefs. He's basically saying dig a little deeper.
Dig a little deeper. I love that. And speaking of digging deeper, he gives us these glimpses into the daily lives of everyday Egyptians, beyond the pyramids and the pharaohs.
He talks about how they wore these light, airy linen tunics, often with fringes. Can you imagine wearing something so elegant in that heat?
Right. And get this, instead of like greeting each other verbally, they'd bow.
Oh, wow.
Talk about a good core workout, right?
Yeah.
But what really impressed me was their ingenuity when it came to dealing with, of all things, mosquitoes.
Yeah.
Mosquitoes.
Herodotus describes how they used these personal sleeping nets.
Cool.
A simple solution, but incredibly effective, especially back then. It makes you think, what other ingenious inventions from ancient civilizations have we just, lost to time?
It's like their version of a mosquito-repelling app or something.
Exactly.
Right. Speaking of things we might find a bit surprising, Herodotus mentions circumcision.
Yes.
A practice that seemed pretty unusual to him.
Well, and what's fascinating is that he observed it not just in Egypt, but in other cultures too, like the Colchians, for example. He even speculates that it might have originated in Egypt and spread from there.
So he wasn't just documenting what he saw, he was also trying to understand these connections and influences between these different societies.
Well, exactly.
It's like he was piecing together this giant historical jigsaw puzzle.
He was definitely seeking those aha moments.
Yeah.
Take, for instance, the story of those pillars supposedly erected by a pharaoh named Sesostris.
Okay.
Herodotus claims to have seen some himself.
Oh, wow. That's like a real-life treasure hunt.
It is.
Trying to find these lost relics from the past.
Exactly.
That's so cool. And then there's that story of Psammeticos.
Oh, yes.
And his rather unusual experiment to determine, like, the oldest civilization.
Oh, yes. Isolating 2 infants with a shepherd and forbidding them from hearing any language.
Wow.
All to determine the original language of mankind. Talk about dedication to a theory.
And the word they supposedly uttered, Bikos. Apparently it sounded like the Phrygian word for bread. I mean, what does it all mean? Who knows?
Right.
But it gives you a sense of how much emphasis they placed on understanding their roots.
Absolutely. Now, are you ready for a story about brotherhood, betrayal, and a very special cup?
Oh, bring it on. I love a good ancient Egyptian mystery.
Well, legend has it that there were these 12 kings ruling Egypt jointly, bound by oaths of loyalty. They decided to create a monument together, like a testament to their unity. The Labyrinth.
Hold on, the Labyrinth. The one that Herodotus describes as having, like, countless rooms and winding passages. It's like the ultimate escape room.
The very same.
Yeah.
He was clearly awestruck by it, claiming it rivaled even the pyramids in grandeur.
Wow.
But back to our story. An oracle prophesizes that whoever pours a libation with a bronze cup in the temple of Hephaestus would become the sole ruler of Egypt.
Ooh, okay, you could practically feel the tension building, right?
Right.
Did somebody pull a Julius Caesar? What happened next?
Well, Herodotus, master storyteller that he is, leaves us hanging. But he certainly sets the stage for some serious drama, doesn't he?
Total cliffhanger.
Yeah.
Makes you want to go, like, digging for more clues. But you know what else caught my eye? The story of Rhampsinitus.
Okay.
The pharaoh, who was so wealthy, he built a treasure chamber just for his gold.
Of course. And, where there's treasure, there are always those who seek to claim it for themselves.
Right.
In this case, some very cunning thieves.
Okay, so the architect who built the chamber leaves a loose stone, right?
Mm-hmm.
And his sons use it to sneak in and steal a fortune. It's like something straight out of Ocean's 11, but like ancient Egyptian style.
It really is. But Rhampsinitus was no fool.
Okay.
He lays a trap, catching one of the sons.
Uh-oh.
At the end of this podcast, please share your thoughts on the book, and if you enjoy this content, don't forget to like and subscribe for more.